I ended up spending way too much time trying to verify that he is the one that invented the electroacoustic harp, and I think he is.
Yeah, he is. He is. I looked into that too. Yeah, he is.
Okay. Yeah, I have like a little section to talk about
Sean-
that stuff. I feel like that would be an interesting thing to add.
Sean went to the patent office and got into
Yeah, exactly. Track that shit down.
Comparing signatures.
Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, record collector, podcaster, DJ, and conduit of Divine Whispers.
Conduit?
Conduit for sale.
Yeah, I hear the Divine Whispers and I just spread them throughout the universe.
That's beautiful.
But you guys know that already.
I guess I just hadn't framed it that way previously.
Hmm.
Well, I'm co-host Jeremy, and I'm a little distressed, guys.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was working on our Patreon mixes. I always do these high concepts. I was kind of, this one's sort of taking climate change as a metaphor for love. And I use my little handheld recorder to do my little spiels in between the songs. And I can't find my little recorder.
Well, you're wondering the location of it, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I have some suggestions.
Can you guess where I've looked already?
Did you look behind the gardens?
I did.
Did you look behind the wall?
I did.
Did you look under the tree?
I didn't check under the tree yet.
Did you check the pyramid in the woods in the bright light?
I did look there already, but not under the tree.
Okay, well that would have been my first guess, but
All right, well, I'm going to leave right now and go look under the tree. Bye, guys.
Okay, while co-host Jeremy is doing that, I am co-host Peter Cook, and I think I need to address something. As you guys know, I am part Swiss, and I feel like it's been a really long time since we featured any music that came from Switzerland. I think our Swiss Movement, Les McCann and Eddie Harris episode of like several seasons back was the last time I can think of offhand. I think we need to right this wrong as soon as possible.
Is right now soon
well,
enough?
how about right now?
That sounds great. How are you able to do that?
Yeah, I think this is the most Swiss record we have featured yet.
Oh, you have one today? Oh.
Well, I'm glad that you've done all the research for this episode.
Legitimately did very little for this one. So hopefully you, as well as our guest, did a lot.
I'm just happy to know that this episode, if it bombs, it's Peter's fault, not mine.
Yeah, I will take all the blame because
Thank you.
I'm asking for a Swiss record yet didn't do a whole lot of research. I did listen to it. Joining us today, hailing from the great city of Philadelphia, is a record collector, DJ who hosts the Sweet Chunk Sound program on greatcircles.net. Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, Melk.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm winking at you across the sea, behind the garden, under the tree.
I felt it. I didn't want to say anything, but I felt it.
I couldn't see because I'm behind the wall.
Jeremy, you're back. Did you find what you were looking for under the tree?
I didn't find the recorder, but I did find what I'm looking for deep down.
Oh, perfect. I'm glad that can happen right here on this episode.
It's a sense of inner peace.
I'm glad I totally derailed our introducing our guest here. Melk, thank you so much for joining us. And how about you go ahead and introduce the record that we're here to talk about?
Yeah, so I decided to bring the new age album Behind the Gardens, Behind the Wall, Under the Tree by Andreas Vollenweider. Really wonky stuff. Absolutely adore this album.
Yeah, and this is definitely a record that we can quickly put in the easy to find category of albums that we've featured. Andreas records are everywhere. They're very, very cheap. You'll be hard pressed to find someone these days who is championing this music or recommending it to people. So we're doing the important work, letting you know that these records are awesome, or at least according to us. Everyone can make their own decisions once they've heard the bio and the music.
I think everyone listening is going to be immediately on board with this record.
What's not to love?
I shouldn't say, I won't yet reveal my personal journey with this. I think we should probably listen to a track before we start talking about the music any further. What did we have first?
We are going to listen to side A, track 1, the title track, Behind the Gardens, Behind the Wall, Under the Tree, ...
Are there really boomer dots after the title?
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Ellipses.
And commas.
We call
This
them
title has everything.
boomer dots here.
I've never heard that before.
Whenever they send a text, they always put the ... after every...
Now that you say that, I've noticed that boomers do use the ... What were you going to say, Malk?
It actually also says, that's not the full title. It also includes including red, dark blue, and yellow, at least on my copy.
Man, this is like a Fiona Apple album title.
Yeah.
His track titles are crazy. But it's this whole storytelling thing, you know? Like he says he's a storyteller, not a musician.
All right, well, let's listen to this first story then. Here is the title track.
The way those drums come in, they just hit so hard.
Yeah, it's an incredible light groove, but, you know, a little bit forceful at the same time. Very intentional, very earnest. I think of this music as being very earnest. This kind of music, when you hear it normally, you don't associate with that. I mean, from a modern perspective, this sound feels very commercial, like too pleasant, unoffensive, and you hear this kind of thing, you just think, oh, these people were making this music to appeal to as a wide of audience as possible. And that's really not the case with Andreas.
It's not actually quite as smooth, hippy dippy as I thought it might be when you forewarned me it would be a new age album. It's not as evident in this track, but other tracks, the drums are pretty strong. There's some pretty thundering, well, literal thunder.
Yeah, nature sounds,
but like kind of aggressive nature sounds. And there's some, it's not as smooth and floaty as some new agey things.
And there's a little bit of darkness to it at times as well. It's predominantly very peaceful, happy, ethereal music, but there's some darker moods and sounds happening occasionally.
Of the handful of new age records that we've featured so far on the program, I think this is among the quote unquote newer ones. This is, I think, 1981.
Yeah, I think that would make this only the second new age record we've featured from the 80s.
Was Stephen Halpern the other one?
Stephen Halpern record might have been early 80s, now that you mention it. But the one I was thinking of was Lucia Huang, House of Sleeping Beauties from 85.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff we've covered is more the early roots of new age music and stuff that's a little more experimental, whereas this is the early roots of new age music as it was becoming a more mainstream and commercially viable form of music. A lot of people unfamiliar with it might not know that pretty much all the stuff that is now labeled new age through the 70s and through the early 80s at the time was considered kind of fringe. There really wasn't a scene for it. There weren't many radio stations that would play it. A lot of the cool people thought that it was terrible. And it was like this, its own little DIY scene. Records were traded by fans. Artists became popular mostly through word of mouth or concert experiences.
Can you imagine the disappointment on a Grateful Dead fan's face when they accidentally trade for this tape?
You think those underground trading networks would have crossed paths?
Maybe like accidentally, like at the post office, it gets switched around and there's two very disappointed people.
Or it totally changed their life.
Could be.
I can see a Grateful Dead fan going from that to this.
But not the other way around.
It's a good question. That's what we're here to talk about. I like that I shame you for going further into my tangent.
Yeah.
So, Malk, tell us about your history with Andreas. When did you start listening to him, and what prompted you to suggest this artist in this record for the episode today?
My first introduction to him was, there was a record store that doesn't exist anymore in Philly, but I would go there because I'm always, when I make music, a lot of the music I make is sample based, and they had a crate of 25-cent cassettes. So I would just go and get piles of cassettes and sample them. Pretty much all of them were new age or smooth jazz adjacent or ambient leaning and stuff, and a lot of those 80s diet cassettes, if you've ever came across those nature sounds. I first came across Down to the Moon was my first Andreas record, and I immediately loved all of the synths. What I later found out to be harp, I thought it was a synth the whole time. And ever since I got that one Down to the Moon cassette, I just buy any Andreas album I see. And this one is hard to miss because, when you're going through the stacks, he's staring at you right there.
Yeah.
Giving you a big old wink.
Yeah, you couldn't miss him.
Yeah, and this was on Columbia, so I imagine it was a fairly well distributed album. There's probably a lot of them out there.
Yeah, I don't know how well distributed it was upon initial release, but I get the feeling like his back catalog was kept in print longer after his success, more in the mid 80s. Like 85, 86 is when he really started breaking into the mainstream. But his whole catalog of 80s records on vinyl are all very easy to find, as we mentioned before.
Well, it's brand new to me. Upon initially listening, I was, and the track we just heard is what I first heard it. It almost felt comically new age to me.
Yeah, I have considered doing an episode on this guy before, but every time where I've thought about it, it's like, man, is this too new age? Have I gone too far thinking about suggesting this guy? So when a guest suggested it, I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's dive in.
Spending more time with it, I ended up running some errands earlier today and drove around in the sunlight, which has been... we have not had a lot of sunlight of late here in Michigan. It was a really nice day out. And I found it a pleasant soundtrack to just driving around with the windows down while running errands around Kalamazoo and Portage, Michigan. It put me in a good headspace. Probably what it's intended to do.
That's fully his intention with this music.
Yeah.
He very genuinely wants to make the world a better place through the power of love and music.
I haven't yet found a new age artist with a mission statement that strays too far from that.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, there aren't many documented cases of just evil new age artists. Maybe Yanni. Maybe Yanni. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah.
I was going to say Master Wilburn Burchett, the infamous, satanic new age musician.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Wow.
Look him up. He's great. His records are super not cheap, though.
Yeah, evil new age, not cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeremy, so yeah, how do you feel? What's your reaction so far?
Well, if I came across this record initially in a store, the guy winking at me would both intrigue me, but also I would definitely just nope on past it.
You wouldn't even give it a listen. So cold.
That's what's happening on the cover. Andreas is winking at you.
Yeah. And he's got a funny smile, and yeah. But I didn't dislike it as much as I expected to. I'll put it that way. It had, as mentioned, kind of more dynamics to it. That's one thing I was thinking when listening to it is I play a good amount of instruments, and I generally have a sense of if what somebody's doing is difficult. But I was realizing listening to it that as Melk said, I thought it sounded like a synthesizer at first, and we'll get to why that is in a bit. But I also found I didn't really understand if it was super technically advanced or not, because I don't know anything about playing a harp.
Well, and he has that at least on my copy, on the notes on the liner notes, it even says in all caps, "Note, there is no bass player. What you hear are the bass strings of the harp." He wants you to know that he's going in, really.
I'm always a big fan of those kind of disclaimers and liner notes. Queen had the "no synthesizers were used in making this album."
I should note there is some synthesizer on here. Some of that is the affected harp sound, but he is also credited with playing the Prophet 5 and the Oberheim Oboxa, in addition to woodwind, soprano saxophone, vocals, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, accordion.
Yeah.
So he's playing a whole lot of stuff on here. Pretty much everything aside from the drums and percussion.
He's like Billy Corgan on Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins.
That's the comparison that I'm sure everybody made simultaneously.
Yeah.
Of course. I just thought I'd say it out loud for the one or two people that may not have.
Of course. Of course. You're very inclusive. I appreciate that about you.
Thank you, Sean. We will get back to our discussion on Andreas Vollenweider in just a moment, but we will take just a moment to pause and talk about our Season 5 Patreon push. This is our annual fundraiser where anyone who has signed up to our Patreon by Sunday, March 31st, 2024, will receive exclusive I'd Buy That for $1 Season 5 swag designed by artist and illustrator Ellen Vandermeide.
We've got such a good theme this year. I'm so stoked about this. We're doing the I'd Buy That for $1 All-Star Team, featuring 4 previously discussed musicians who are also well known to have excelled in athletics. People that were just so close to becoming pro sports people and then made a shift into music.
All right, I've been thinking about this, guys. Let's say, God forbid, Chris Christopherson gets injured and they're looking over to the bench warmers, us, me, Peter, and Sean. Who are they calling up? Who's next man up?
Are you asking which of us is the closest to Chris Christopherson in like just general vibe?
No, in like physical sports ability.
Well, only one of us ran a marathon recently, so...
Oh, that would be me.
True, but you've also beat me in a foot race, Sean, so...
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's between you two.
I
guess it would depend on if it's like a speed burst activity or a longevity kind of thing.
Well, I think
we've got different specialties. We make a great team, you know? Or at least a great trio of bench warmers.
so. We've kind of buried the lead here. Yeah, we are the bench warmers, and we have Johnny Mathis, Tammy Wynette, Charlie Pride, and Chris Christopherson. They're the all-stars, and we're the all-star bench warmers in this whole series of designs. Those signed up at the $1 tier, the early access tier, by March 31st, 2024, will receive a sticker of the All-Star logo. Those signed up at the $5 bonus tier will receive the sticker plus a pin of the All-Star bench warmers. At the $10 monthly mix tier, you will receive the sticker and the pin plus a tote bag featuring the I'd Buy That for $1 All-Stars. And at the $25 vinyl subscription tier, patrons get all of that plus a mug featuring the I'd Buy That for $1 All-Stars, as well as the bench warmers. And you can sign up right now over at patreon.com/I'd Buy That podcast.
And after March 31st, you get nothing.
Well, nothing, sir. Nothing.
Well, you get the cool things you would normally get.
Yeah.
But you're not getting any of this cool swag unless you go on eBay. Then you might be able to buy it for like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. Or if you're smart, you sign up for the Patreon, you get the swag, you preserve it, you keep it safe, and then you retire on it once we become world famous podcasters. And then it's like incredibly valuable gear. You know, this is a wise investment on your part.
It's a retirement plan.
Yes.
Once in a lifetime opportunity. The designs can be viewed over on Instagram at I'd Buy That Podcast or on Facebook. Search I'd Buy That for $1. Once again, to sign up by March 31st, 2024, go over to patreon.com/I'd Buy That podcast. And we now return to our discussion on Andreas Vollenweider.
So how about we listen to another song, huh?
Yeah, we're going to listen to the one that's all thunder.
I forget, is there thunder at the beginning of track 2?
I guess we'll find out.
I can't remember.
There's thunder on this record, and all of the songs have similar structure and different samples going on. But anyway, we are going to listen to side A, track 2, Pyramid - In the Wood - In the Bright Light, which according to Wikipedia is a fan favorite track and has been a concert staple since the release of this album.
I love Wikipedia. Open up the pit.
That's what the fans say every time he drops that one live.
Yeah. Oh, my favorite.
Yeah, that was very mellow, but pleasant.
Yeah, that's the vibe. Mellow but pleasant. The Andreas Vollenweider story.
I don't know that I would even recognize it out of a lineup if it just started playing, though. Maybe I'm just not attuned to this kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to hear the difference.
You got to really spend some time with it.
Yeah.
It's funny, Jeremy, because if you try when you just sort of put on a new age persona, you're the best of any of us at doing that. See the intro of our Stephen Halpern episode for an example of
true.
Jeremy's new age vibes.
Yeah, he can be very soothing when he wants to be.
Yeah, it's just because I've been working on my cult leader persona for most of my life now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll perfect it one day, and I think that you're slowly working towards it with getting a following with this podcast.
Yes. I will also say, Melk pointed this out while we were listening to the track, but the drums are very fat, and I noticed...
PHAT.
Yeah. And it's just like the way a lot of the things I noticed were mixed on this album. They feel like there's more low end to a lot of the instruments than is normally in like a pop production, I guess.
I wonder if they mastered it to have more low end because of harp being the lead instrument.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, have you ever noticed like how on a lot of new age or new age similar recordings, a lot of them are marketed as like audiophile?
Oh yeah.
Andreas has some releases on like CBS Masterworks. I know I've got a couple of like releases under like that MCA Master series that are all like digital mastered, and they really want you to know that. Yeah, I feel like in this era of new age music, like people really wanted to put the whole like sound stage on display for all these new sounds or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think you can reach the highest chakra with crappy audio, right?
Yeah.
Got to be pristine for total enlightenment.
A lot of the people who were investing serious money in audiophile equipment around this time, these were the perfect kind of records to show off how great your system was. You know, people would love to play Andreas Vollenweider or Tangerine Dream or those synthesizer records and a lot of like new age adjacent stuff, ECM fusion jazz. Like these are all favorites of people who wanted really, really high quality pressed records played through expensive systems. And as a result, not only can you find Andreas records cheap, but they're almost always in nearly flawless condition. Like the people who were playing these records were doing so very carefully, and the music is well preserved as a result.
They're not partied out.
No, these were not party records.
I noticed they also, like all of those MCA Master series and CBS Masterworks, like they all have plastic inner sleeves. Same with like Windham Hill. So when I was working in the record store, like whenever I would see like an Andreas record or a Windham Hill record, chances are the condition would be pretty fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Don't want any acidy paper ruining your new age record.
So, who is this guy? What's his deal?
Well, let me tell you just that. Over the course of several minutes of biographical information, how does that sound to you?
I accept.
All right. Andreas was born October 4th, 1953, which would, of course, make him the exact same age as Gil the Bird Moore, which everybody knows is the drummer and vocalist for Canadian band Triumph. You know, Lay It on the Line. Other songs, too, probably.
Wow, that was a very Peter thing of you to mention.
I have my moments.
He was inspired to continue doing that from the Dennis Miller thing last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was fresh on the mind. So he was born in Zurich, Switzerland, His mother was a painter, and his father, Hans, was considered one of the leading organists in Europe. In fact, in the early 1960s, Hans held master classes on the organ at the University of Michigan.
Right near where Jeremy and I are.
Exactly.
And where you used to be near Sean.
Yes, before I leveled up, as they say.
Wow.
Yeah. Andreas grew up in what he described as a very creative and loving environment where he was never forced to do anything he didn't want to do, which I think gives you a pretty important insight as to where this guy is coming from and why he chose to make such peaceful, mostly happy music. It's coming from a very genuine place.
You give a kid total freedom and they will end up a harp player.
Yeah. Or a complete monster. It's kind of a coin toss sometimes, but thankfully we got the good side from Andreas.
Thank goodness.
At age 18, he married a kindergarten teacher named Beata, and the two are still together to this day.
Aw.
Yeah. In 1975, 22-year-old Andreas discovered the harp. He fell in love with the instrument, but found it to be limiting both in its setup and its traditional role in music. So he began tinkering with the design and working on forging his own unique style with the instrument. Andreas began playing around Switzerland during the second half of the 1970s. He recorded on several albums with friends, as well as released his first solo album in 1979, the title of which roughly translates to A Kind of Sweet Divided into 13 Parts. Most of his work during this time would be more categorized in the prog rock or jazz fusion genres.
Interesting. I could hear some prog influence in this, honestly. Well, or jazz fusion.
Yeah, with a very strong classical influence as well, which classical was a definite influence on a lot of prog and jazz fusion as well. So as we said, he's been tinkering around with the harp design through the second half of the 70s. And then by the year 1980, he had created the world's first electroacoustic harp. I did some research into this, and the first solid body electric harps weren't even in production until the mid-80s, and electroacoustic harps weren't in production until even longer after that. So the fact that he was running a completely functional electroacoustic harp in 1980 is a little bit wild.
He just handmade it?
He didn't build it from the ground up. He was modifying existing harps. So the reason it took so long to make electric and then electroacoustic harps is that you have a big problem with feedback issues, the same issues that were present with the first electric hollow body guitars, except it's even worse with a harp. It's very hard to put microphones on the strings or pickups. So he had developed a design where he has the right kind of microphone pickup on each individual string, and he has a self-designed damper mechanism at the bottom of the strings, which helps prevent feedback and also gives him more dynamic and rhythmic control, where he can quickly mute all of the strings on the harp, which is why he has such a rhythmic feel to his playing, which is not very common with harp players, especially not before this.
Yeah, that must be what makes it kind of hard to discern from a synth at times, because there's times where I sort of thought it was the harp, but it's really quick, shifty, rhythmic kind of thing.
I often forgot that I was listening to a harp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is partly because there's not as much sustain on the strings, so you're not hearing the harp sound that you're most used to.
Yeah.
And then because it was electroacoustic, he's running the signal through effects that make it sound like a synthesizer. So he can blend the acoustic sound of the harp and the affected sound, both in studio and live, which gave him this whole world of sonic possibilities that no one else was able to use aside from him, at least for a few years anyways.
I wonder how harp purists felt about this.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm sure there were divided opinions, as there always are with purists of any genre.
And especially harp purists.
Yes. Andreas quickly gained a reputation as a live performer and was out on the road as often as possible. He was one of 25 acts to play the 1981 Montreux Jazz Festival, which, if you want, I could quickly name a few other acts that he co-headlined the festival with. Well, I mean, not co-headlined, but played the festival with.
Yeah, and that we talked about that on our, not that year, but we've talked about that festival previously. That takes place in Switzerland.
Yes, and he played alongside Billy Cobham, Chick Corea, David Sanborn, Dizzy Gillespie, Herbie Hancock, James Brown, McCoy Tyner, Mike Oldfield, and others, including the Stray Cats for some reason. I don't know why they were on the festival that year. But Elvis Costello played the year before, so I guess they were just trying to branch out.
Yeah, and they probably threw in a few, completely different sort of acts to try to draw attention to them.
Yeah, for the kids.
For the kids.
So at the festival, he was discovered by producer Vera Brandis, who offered to produce an album and release it on her own label. This album was then released in September 1981 and distributed internationally by Columbia. That is the record we are listening to today, Behind the Gardens. So this is technically his second solo album, but most people think of it as his debut album since it was the first album to be widely available and distributed outside of his own country. This album was definitely not an instant hit. It had a little bit of chart action in Germany the year after it was released, but in general, kind of flew under the radar in the States.
Was there any new age hitting in the States? It would have been kind of underground still, right?
There was a strong underground scene for new age music in the States, but I don't think there was much of like radio station pushing it. There wasn't a lot of traditional promotion behind it. Labels weren't pushing it, and not a lot of people thought of it as something that could make money. It was just, weirdos making records about nature and stuff. There's no money in that.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about some of the other artists. They wouldn't have been even selling the records necessarily in traditional record stores. They might have been in like health food stores.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is on Columbia, so you'd think they would be going a more traditional route with where they're sending it off to be sold.
Yeah, and I'm curious how they were trying to push it at the time. Like, were they trying to sell it to jazz people or classical people? Not sure.
You had to be there to know.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and listen to another song. We're going to flip over to side B and hear the song Lion and Sheep. That's track 4.
I would be happy to be on hold if that was the hold music.
The thing that this music reminds me of constantly is the pre-smartphone days when you wanted to know what the weather was going to be like. You had to turn on the Weather Channel, and it was always featuring a soundtrack of the most smooth, inoffensive, light jazz kind of thing. And it feels like that music and hold music in general owes a massive debt to Andreas Vollenweider, for better or worse.
Highly influential.
And yet I would rather hear this than any of the stuff that is trying to copy it.
There were some vocalizations in there.
Yeah, he likes to throw in a little bit of vocals here and there. That's the other thing that I think really sets this music apart from the cheap imitators, is that he's storytelling with this music. There's twists and turns and shifts, and he brings in little bits of instrumentation here and there just to give it a different coloring for a little while. But it's certainly not intended to just be background music that you forget about and don't actively engage with. Like, this is music that's supposed to be listened to intently.
I was reading about how he would say that he became a multi-instrumentalist by accident because he was trying to find what eventually became his harp, like his instrument. And so as a result, he just like taught himself how to play tons and tons of instruments. That's why I like on his other albums, I know that like I sampled one track of his where he's playing a berimbau, I think it's it. It's like a Brazilian string instrument. He really tries to, yeah, like you said, Sean, be able to tell a story with whatever he can get his hands on at that given time.
So I'm going to go ahead and finish off a little bit of the bio here. There is so much work that Andreas has done throughout his life and continues to do. So everything after this is just going to be kind of a quick gloss over, but know that if you're into this, there's a lot more to dig into, both musically and story-wise. So he followed this album in 1982 with a record called Caverna Magica, which is also really good. And then after that, he put out a record called White Winds, parentheses, A Seeker's Journey. That was released in 1984, and it was his first album to make the Billboard charts here in the States. This was, again, due primarily to playing a lot of shows and word-of-mouth fans spreading his tapes and buying the records that they could find out in the States. And then in November of 1984, he embarked on his first full USA tour. The kickoff show in New York was presented by Carly Simon, who about a year before that had become a massive fan of Andreas. She said that during this time, anyone that came to visit her, chances are within the first 15 minutes of showing up to her house, she would be playing them some Andreas and trying to convert them to his music.
Wow.
Now I get some insight into what it's like to hang out with Carly Simon.
Yeah, a little bonus for this episode. And Andreas has stated that Carly is largely responsible for his popularity in the States. So he owes a huge debt to her, interestingly enough.
I'm surprised we haven't featured a Carly Simon album yet. I have several.
It's bound to happen at some point. Lots of good music out there still. Andreas spent most of 1985 on tour, and then when his fifth album, Down to the Moon, which we mentioned before, when that was released in 1986, it became so popular that the Grammy Awards created a new category for New Age music and gave the first award to Andreas in 1987. So at this point, he had come full circle, played a massive part in popularizing and bringing New Age music into the mainstream, and was officially recognized as a New Age superstar.
Wow. They made an award for him.
Yeah, well, and then other New Age musicians after him. But from what I had read, the category was at least partially created because of Andreas's massive success in the mid-'80s.
I'm glad they gave him his flowers.
Yeah. Too often these artists don't really get their flowers in their lifetime, but it seems that for the most part, Andreas has. And From what I can tell, he has remained very true to his initial inspiration, true to himself. He seems like a very peaceful, loving guy. You can find a lot of recent YouTube videos of him playing in his house, either solo or with friends. They always start with these like beautiful, inspiring messages of peace to the world that he gives you, and then he just plays his astounding, beautiful, peaceful music for everybody. He is also an outspoken pacifist and admirer of Gandhi. He has championed various social justice and environmental causes throughout his life, including raising money for Amnesty International and Greenpeace.
One of you guys got to tell me about the scientific study. You hinted there was a scientific study involving him.
Yeah, I tried to get as much info on it as I could. I got a lot of this from his website, so but it seems to be accurate. In 2015 in Geneva, he was contacted by a team of specialists in infant brain imaging from the University of Geneva and the University Hospital of Geneva, and they approached him to make a soundtrack, like specific music that would provide a calming acoustic environment to babies. They would stimulate the brain activity of the babies when he plays this and try to see like what sort of effect it would have on their brains. Apparently, it was incredibly successful, and the National Geographic magazine declared the project one of 12 innovations that will revolutionize the future of medicine.
Wow.
Yeah, as if everything we've talked about up to this wasn't enough. He's also out there revolutionizing medicine.
Making babies smarter.
Doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, just ripping some heart and making babies smarter. Gotta love them.
I guess more specifically, it was like when a baby is born prematurely, they run the risk of developing brain damage that results in neurodevelopmental delay. And apparently, when you listen to the soundtrack that Andreas made, it sort of brought a lot of success in helping out further brain development.
Do you think it works on adults too? Like, am I going to become smarter if I keep listening to Andreas?
You'll probably be a lot better around thunder and lightning, I can imagine.
Might at least be a little bit more of a chill dude, at the very least.
I saw that Andreas had a hand in helping Hans Zimmer with the score for the 2003 film Tears of the Sun, directed by Training Day director Antoine Fuqua, nephew of Harvey Fuqua of the Moonglows, who we talked about on our Sylvester episode.
Wow. Well done, Peter.
So you did do some research. Okay.
Yeah, that was the thing that stood out to me.
The 5 degrees of Fuqua.
Yeah. That's my new Tupac connection.
Nice.
Yeah, Andreas did some other soundtrack work as well, mostly for nature documentaries.
That seems odd. I can't fit that at all.
Yeah, makes no sense. Most shocking move of his career.
Controversial.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think at this point I might just sit here for a while and see if anybody asks me a question, you know?
I'm trying to point at Jeremy for a cue and he's on his phone.
Well, I'll just keep sitting here. It's fine. I got nothing but time.
Me too. I'm feeling very chill. I could just take a nap right here by the microphone.
Mm-hmm. Behind the wall.
I just wish there was some other music playing while I took a nap, though. You know, I've listened to this album.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of anything else I could listen to, Sean?
As a matter of fact, I can.
Maybe some recommended similar albums?
I have 4 of them. One that we mentioned previously, Lucia Huang, House of Sleeping Beauties from 1985. You can listen to our previous episode on that record. And then I got 3 others. One from 1983, the self-titled album by the band Shadowfax.
Oh, I like that name.
Oh, I love Shadowfax.
Yeah, Malk, I thought you might be a fan of that one. I know you love the Windham Hill label and associated projects. Next recommendation, a synthesizer pioneer and one of the early creators of New Age music, especially the more synthed out versions of it. I'm talking about Deuter and his 1982 masterpiece, Cicada. Also notable for being a guy who was really good at combining acoustic and electronic sounds and also some nature sounds. You can hear the direct comparisons pretty easily. And then one more, I got a real deep cut with this one. I'm recommending the album Golden Voyage Volume 2 from 1981 by Robert Barnes and Ron Dexter. New Age music has become sort of a specialty of mine in collecting. The show I do on greatcircles.net, Deep Zones, is primarily a New Age show. And these days when I go into a record store, I'm trying to buy at least one New Age or ambient related record from this time, especially ones that are cheap and obscure. Big surprise.
Sean, I was ready to follow you down the funk and soul path that you took 10, 12 years ago. I don't know if I'm ready for this New Age. I'm fine with featuring them on the podcast, and I love that you're doing it. I'm going to learn whatever you put in front of me, but I don't know that I'm fully ready for that journey.
Well, I'll keep leading, and one day it'll all make sense to you.
It may click. We'll see.
Yeah.
Funk, soul, New Age, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
I also like country music now. You know, I'm widening my horizons because of this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you keep bringing the New Age records. Maybe, yeah, it could happen yet for me.
Well, I'll keep trying.
But I'm impressed with how much you've learned already. You're talking about a whole bunch of stuff I know nothing about.
Welcome to my world, Peter.
Yeah.
Well, I've got 2 records. If I could offer some recommendations.
Yes, please.
Oh, please do. I'm gonna take a long nap, so I need as much as I can get.
Both of these are tried and true dollar classics. The first one is Tomita. The album's called The Planets. Who's a Japanese New Age musician. The album's from 1976, but it's kind of like modern classical, all electronic and synths. And then the other one I picked out was the album Tun Huang, I think is how it's pronounced. Sorry if I butchered it. By another Japanese New Age musician named Kitaro.
Yeah, Kitaro is awesome. I almost put one of his records on my list as well.
Yeah, well, that's all more stuff that is all new to me. Oh, Jeremy, you can probably... or Jeremy's asleep, actually.
Yeah. Don't wake him.
Well, Malk, thank you so much for bringing this record, and I think it's cool that it's one that Sean had been considering, and you helped push it.
Yeah, and I had a great time researching this. As often happens in working on these episodes, I came away with a much greater respect for him as a person, but also much more appreciation for his music. I feel like every time I put on one of his records, I like it a little bit more now. Definitely fully a big fan.
But I think, yeah, that's my experience in just listening to this like 3 times in preparation for this. Like I said, I went from it being laughable to being a great soundtrack for my afternoon. So there's hope for me yet.
Yeah. Once you get past the initial shock of comparing it to all the cheap imitators, there's something here.
Malk, at this stage, would you like to talk a little bit more about what you do and where people can hear you or find you doing that?
Sure thing. So I make music under the name Malk.
Is that M-A-L-C?
M-A-L-K.
Oh, good.
Like it's referencing that scene in The Simpsons where, yeah, but
I don't know that scene in The Simpsons, but
it's when Fat Tony and his gang take over the school, and Bart is like drinking milk, and he goes, "My bones are so brittle, but I always drink plenty of." And then he looks at it and goes, "Wait, milk?"
Oh,
But,
wow!
and it says full of vitamin R. I have a magnet of it on my fridge.
I love hyper-specific Simpsons references.
Oh, most musical projects I've done are Simpsons references. I had a project that's kind of completed called the Super Nintendo Chalmers.
Oh, that's Ralph Wiggum who said that.
Yeah. But yeah, I make music under the name Malk. I've got a couple of releases that are on the way. And I have a ton of other like aliases, but I think I have a solo Malk album coming out soon, I think. I also co-own a screen printing / record label operation based out of Philadelphia and Baltimore. My brother runs the screen printing side and I run the record label side. We've just started getting into vinyl releases. The first one is probably going to be announced any day now. Is a reissue of one of my albums that wasn't on vinyl before called We Belong Underground. And then after that, we're doing a deep cut 2013 Vaporwave album that never was released on vinyl. And then the one after then is still in the works, but it's a Japanese ambient musician. Not too dissimilar from Tomita, but a little bit more on the Hiroshi Yoshimura side.
Wow. You go deep on this stuff.
I mean, I just love, I love like everything new age, because new age and smooth jazz and jazz in general, but especially the new age stuff, because I mean, you go to these record stores and no one really wants them. Sometimes I've been just given them before. Like, yeah, no one's going to buy these.
Yeah. That's like, yeah, that's, I feel like some people that get into stuff like gospel for the same reasons, like, and people are just selling this for nothing and no one else cares about it. So I'm going to dive in deep. I love that. I love those little corners of the record store that you can kind of make your own, claim them.
Yeah. The more esoteric sections of the store, the overlooked bins.
I should get you on my radio show, Sean, by the way.
Let's do it. I accept.
Jeremy and I aren't ready yet.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have much to learn yet.
You guys could all do dollar records. All of it. 2 hours of just dollar records.
Oh, yeah. We could pretty easily do just that.
Yeah. That's our thing. We do that.
That's our thing.
Well, fantastic. Was there anything else to say about Andreas before we introduce our final selection?
Yeah, I have one quick final thought. I think one element that is part of the secret to Andreas' success is that he probably didn't do this intentionally, but it kind of feels like he made the perfect combination of all of the different elements that created New Age before this. So in my mind, that's more folk-leaning stuff, more classical-leaning, jazz, prog, synthesizer, nature sounds, and traditional music influences from around the world. You had artists who combined one or two of those before, or would work primarily in one of those mediums, and Andreas just effortlessly brought all of that together in a way that was accessible to a wide audience somehow.
Yeah, it's no easy feat.
True.
And he made babies smarter along the way.
I will actually add one more thing that I was reminded of listening to this. My late brother, Jonathan, he created a pretty incredible album in 2018 called Salute the Sun under the name Jonathan Aiden. And I think people that dig this sound would really like that record. It's available online. It's out there on CD if you can find it, but yeah, it's ready to hear online. Jonathan Aiden, Salute the Sun. Incredible work.
Awesome.
So I was a little reminded of that while listening to this. Thank you so much for listening to I'd Buy That for $1. What is the final selection, Sean, that we're going to hear today?
We are going to hear the last song on the album, Side B, Track 7, Hands and Clouds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this one is quite angelic. It's a great way to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, and it's got more of those really fat drums like we've mentioned that intro drum riff almost sounds like it's about to go into something like much more energetic or heavy than he's done before, but it's just more of that super happy angelic sound that we've all come to know and love.
Cool. Let's float away.
This has been I'd Buy That for $1. My name is Peter Cook.
I'm Jeremy Ruggles.
I'm Sean Hartman.
I'm Malk.